It is Monday. I'm Mighty Montlake Miguel, and you know this is Mondays on Montlake. We are back. Another week in the books as we draw closer and closer to fall camp and the beginning of the Husky season. I'm very, very, very excited about it. As far as recruiting goes, Sensor Gaylord, um, Deshaun Yarborough, both I think are set to commit on the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, of July. So we should have some answers here. Quickly, kind of rounding out Jedd Fisch class, and I mean it's a good one. I mean I know it's not top 12 like last year, but when you're looking at the players that they got and what they need, they got blue chip players across the board, and I feel like they almost have better players this year than they had last year with a better class as far as ranking goes. But I think more than anything, they got the things they need to keep building this Big Ten roster. So let's shift focus onto what we're going to talk about this week. With the season drawing forward, or drawing closer, we see that, I went over the position battles last week, the ones at least that I think are going to be big ones. This week, I want to kind of focus on who's driving the ship, who is got to have a big season for Washington to really have a successful year in 2026. And that starts at the quarterback, and that is your boy, Dezmen Williams. Love him or hate him, he is your guy going into this year, and we need to support him if we want to see the Dogs have a big season. Now, as we look into Dezmen Williams, there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, is Dezmen Williams good enough?" And it's like, I think that's a terrible question because I think we already know he's good enough. I think the real question is what does Dezmen Williams need to do to really touch his ceiling and start really reaching what he can do as an athlete, but also as a quarterback in this Jedd Fisch offense. I think if we start off by looking at last season, and last season through 13 games, he went 246 for 354 as far as passing goes. That's almost 70%. That's 69.49. He threw for 3,000 yards or 3,065 yards, 25 touchdowns, eight interceptions. That's a passing efficiency rating of 161.01, while rushing for another 611 and six touchdowns. He earned honorable mention All Big Ten. Um, and I think when you're talking about Dezmen Williams and what he brings to the table, a 19-year-old who just finished his first year as a starting quarterback, amassing over 3,600 total yards and over 30 touchdowns while only turning the ball over 8 times. I don't care who you are. That's a 19-year-old. That is a huge season, even though he did struggle against some of the best competition. But let's be honest, for as much as he struggled against Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon, in the two bowl games he's played and against a ranked Illinois team, he came and showed out. So he, while he hasn't done it against the top tier, um, a talent yet, he still played really, really well last year and enough to earn the accolades that he earned. So as we look into what we're going to kind of cover this episode, I think first is what did we learn from last season? And I think the Oregon game showed a lot because the Oregon game, these were kind of the observations that I had. I mean, pressure dictated that game. If you look at, he was in duress and on the run the whole game. Third and long was a huge problem. Oregon blitzed relentlessly. They kept the pressure on him. Um, Protections occasionally broke down, and that does happen against a good team like Oregon. Dezmen definitely held the ball way too long, even though receivers weren't always getting open. And I think Dezmen missed a lot of open guys. Now, how that differed from like Michigan or Ohio State was against Michigan and Ohio State, Dezmen was playing pretty well in both those games until the offensive line got hurt. And it felt like a deficiency in depth as opposed to just being outplayed and outcoached. Regardless, I think one of the things that we saw throughout the season last year was Dezmen being late, as far as his reads go, not being able to always read and pick up the pressure. And then one of the things that, you know, we'll kind of break this down. Like recognizing pressures pre-snap is a big part of what he struggled with last year. And can he reset the protections was another thing that he struggled with. And can he identify like where the pressure is coming from? Those are all things that can be fixed, and especially a 19-year-old who's experiencing this pretty much for the first time. He played a bunch as a freshman, but it was a drive here and a drive there when guys were preparing for Rodgers and not him. So I think he got a little bit extra last year when guys were preparing for him. And I don't think that with him, it isn't necessarily him becoming faster. I think it's him becoming earlier, him recognizing leverage, recognizing rotations, and knowing where the easy answer is. He likes to play a lot of hero ball, and I think his athleticism got him out of a lot of problems in the past. He doesn't have to do that. Damon, he trusts his talent, and that's good. Um, but Fisch doesn't need superhero ball. He needs a guy that's going to get him 2nd and 6 or 3rd and 3. A guy that stays on schedule. And I think you start putting yourself in those better positions. His athletic ability then is able to bridge the gap where a deficiency or where somebody who might just have a superstar player is. It might be able to bridge that gap and get him a first down, get the chains moving. I think he also needs to anticipate. He needs more anticipation in his throws. Um, can he throw before the receiver breaks? Those are things we saw with Michael Penix, and they always yielded great results. And doing that, especially against the top tier talent when the windows are smaller, because he trusts his wide receivers, he trusts the guys that he's going against. I think part of what we can do to, or what Washington can do to help with this process, because it's not going to happen overnight, and he should be getting better as the season's going along. I think Fisch can help him in a few really, really dope ways. Um, First things that I think Fisch is going to do, especially when Damon is struggling, is simplify his reads. Give him things that are going to be a little bit easier, like move the launch point, RPOs, play action, sprint out, half field reads, even if he's struggling really bad or you're playing against really, really good defenses. Screens, the quick game, tempo is another thing that the Huskies, when they've been able to get people on their heels, tempo has been a big part of it. And I think that can help. And I think, it's not a first time thing for Jedd Fisch to do this. He did the same thing with Noah Fifita. And I think Noah Fifita is a very good quarterback, but I think Damon Williams' ceiling is higher than a Noah Fifita's. And if he can do that with a Noah Fifita, what's to keep him from being able to do that? I mean, look, with Noah Fifita, he took a guy that was a true freshman. Dude ended up playing 12 games, started 9, was 7-2 as a starter, threw for like 2,800 yards and 25 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He showed a lot, and I think that Damon can walk a similar path to that. Um, and I think that's kind of what we're hoping to see. Now, the other thing about this is Damon's not going to be doing this alone. There is a really nice cast of players that are around him that I think can really help kind of push this forward. When we're looking at his receiving core, we already know him and Dezmen Roebuck have a really good chemistry. We know that he can anticipate where Roebuck's going to be, and Roebuck can be that safety net across the middle of the field. And when he's playing out of the slot, it allows him to get the ball to him quicker. But outside of that, people nationally might not know Rashid Williams, but locally here in Seattle, we've watched him, especially last year before he got hurt. He developed a lot of chemistry with Damon Williams. Then this year in the spring, for me, who was there personally, I thought he came out looking like a number one. And he looked, and when I say number one, a guy that Damon Williams counted on and could make the big play, whether it was stretching the field like the touchdown in the spring game, or if it was all the other routes on the route tree that he was able to run and get open and make plays after the catch. Besides those two, who I think are kind of penciled in as your starters, guys like Christian Moss, guys like Justice Williams, guys like Jordan Clay and Trez Davis, you have a ton of talent in that room, and they're going to be able to get open. There's going to be matchup problems everywhere. And because they're not known on a national level, lots of these guys are going to fly under the radar. And people are going to get caught with their pants down because they didn't know Trez Davis, Jordan Clay, Justice Williams. These guys are as good as they actually are. Now, on top of that, the running back room has got a stable of guys that can do things, from Jayden Lamar, who's an explosive back that runs really well in the zone scheme that Jedd Fisch runs, um, especially that outside zone catching screens. Trey Cooley, who's another guy who is a physical back and is going to be a guy that helps keep him on schedule. And if Jordan Washington is healthy and can play, that adds a element of speed that, like I said, we haven't seen here in Washington in a long time. And you get the ball to him in space, he's going to be a tough guy to bring down. Now, those weapons, along with Decker DeGraff and guys like Ansu Sanu and maybe Brian Bonner, are all really, really. There's a lot of weapons. I don't think there's a shortage of weapons on this team. But what we saw last year that was a struggle that I think is going to be really different this year, and I think can help a lot in the growth of Damon Williams, is going to be that offensive line. Bringing in a five-star freshman tackle like Cody Green to be next to preseason All-American John Mills, Landon Hatchett, Champ Talea, and Drew Azzopardi. And then you got guys like Colt Dietrich and Gary and Hatchett backing them up, meaning you have starting quality players at all five positions, and then two backups that are Big Ten starting quality players. If somebody gets hurt, you're not going to see the drop off like you saw last year. And I think you're going to see Damon being able to keep himself up. And these guys want to play for like a Joe Moore award. They don't, this offensive line believes they're that good. And Switzer really has them believing that they can be that. And when you look at their size, they're going to match up well with anybody, at least physically, that they play in the Big Ten. Now, the truth of the matter is, from last year, is we saw a lot of struggles, and I pointed them out. Like I said, missing open guys, getting flustered when the pressure came, not being able to figure out where the pressure is coming and who's bringing it. But there's lots of reasons to be optimistic here. And I think when it starts is Damon Williams' flaws are not physical weaknesses. They're not like, oh, he's just not fast enough. His arm's just not strong enough. Those aren't the problems that he has. Recognition, timing, rhythm, processing, patience is all stuff that can be learned and is expected to be learned as a player gets older. It's not like we're expecting him to do something crazy wild. We're just expecting him to continue his maturation. And I said it like this: if Damon Williams is just 10% better than he was last year, you're looking at a guy that's around 4,000 yards. You're looking at a guy that's at 35 touchdowns. You're looking at a guy that it's got what appears to be close to Heisman numbers. And I think that that's something you can't leave out. You can't ignore that a 19-year-old just did this in the Big Ten, that he led the Big Ten in total yards, that he had 30 touchdowns as a 19-year-old playing in the Big Ten as a starter for the first time. Those are things that can't be taken as not fact, because they are. And when you watch what he does and watch what his ceiling can be, and then what Jedd Fisch has put around him offensively, I think you're starting to see the makings of a player that not only should have Washington competing for the Big Ten championship, but a guy whose athletic ability matched with the next step that he should take could take him to New York and that Heisman podium. I'm Montlake Miguel. This is Mondays on Montlake. We'll see you next week. Go Dogs.